Welcome back to the Crochet Crowdhouse with my friends at yarnspirations.com. Today's the conversation blanket that is using Bernat Blanket Perfect Phasing yarn. Now, I designed another blanket and somebody said, well, that looks like the same stitch as the conversational shawl that we once did, but it technically wasn't. But it got me thinking about that particular stitch concept, and then it got me thinking about the Bernat Blanket Perfect Phasing as well. So in Bernat Blanket Perfect Phasing, most of the colors end up getting close to white near the end of the ball. And so when you start backing up these balls together like this, you can create a really cool texture just like you see, as well as the color transitioning. So right here is that we start from the first ball, from the outside of the ball, working our way in, which takes you to the dark color that you see. The second ball, you start on the inside of the ball and go and then end up on the white, which you see right here. The next one, you're on the outside of the ball with the white going into the blue, and then the next ball you go from the blue going out to the white, and therefore it transitions like this. So this is the whole concept of this. So let me show you the yarn. So this is Bernat Blanket Perfect Phasing, and so you can see that the outside of it is almost very close to white, and then it transitions ever so seamlessly all the way to the center. So when you start the blanket, you want to start with the outside going into here, and then the next ball you take from the center, which will be the same color, and then you then crochet yourself until you're out here, and then you can change to the next ball. So I just happen to use two different colors in my particular blanket, but you can use the same idea going through, and it really does a cool job. This is a really easy repeating pattern, and the yarn is doing the work as far as coloring, and you just have to stitch until you can't stitch anymore. Let's begin. So if you are using the Bernat Blanket Perfect Phasing, use an 8mm size L crochet hook. I'm just using demonstration yarn today with Peyton's inspired yarn, as well as a 6mm size J. So you can substitute this pattern really quite easily. If you would like to change the size of your blanket, just know that it's in multiples of 2 plus 1. So you just say 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and when you're happy with the width, just add one more, or you can chain 131 as per the pattern. So that's where we're going to start, and we're going to do our first row next. So first row, we're going to go second chain from the hook. Because it's Bernat Blanket yarn, I recommend that when you go second chain from the hook, that you put 2 of the strands on top of the hook and 1 underneath. Because it's Bernat Blanket, it can leave a big hole into your edge if you do it the back hump way like I normally do. So just single crochet yourself all the way across your chain, and I will see you at the end of the chain in just a moment. Getting all the way across your chain, so you should have an even count. Even though we chained an odd number, we should have an even count because we use second chain from the hook. So that was row number 1. So let's turn our work and do row number 2. In this pattern, whenever I started a row and there was a double crochet row or a double crochet stitch required, I only chained 2 instead of 3, and it will make the edge a lot nicer to look at. So instead of chaining 3 like we technically do, just chain 2 and then start in your next stitch. So row number 2, we're just going to double crochet starting in the next stitch all the way to the very end. So make sure the last stitch is also a double crochet, so it's only just when you start, just chain 2 instead, and it keeps it nice and tight like you see there. So do this all the way for row number 2. I'm all the way at the back. To answer a question right now, actually, so people will say, well, you know what's happening when you transition ball to ball, you want to transition exactly where the one ball finishes off. So you don't want to necessarily wait to the end of a row so you have waste. So right when one ball finishes, that's when you add the next ball in. So that's just a little tip for you. So row number 3 is next. Row number 3 is next. It's technically starting with the double crochets, but we only want to chain 2, and we're going to use the next 2 stitches to do a crisscross. So I'm going to skip the next stitch and double crochet the next, and I prefer to crisscross in behind, but if you want to crisscross in front, you can decide to do that for yourself. Some people will argue with that on YouTube, but you decide what works for you. Just be consistent about it. So then I'm going to worry about the next 2, so I'm going to double crochet the next 2, and technically I would take that knot out and start a new fresh strand. So I technically wouldn't do what I'm doing here, but that happens. So remember, yarn is like a fickle thing. So then you continue to crisscross. So just skip one, double crochet the next, and come into the one you skipped. Okay, so then crisscross, and you're going to do this all the way across. So because you have an even count number, you will end up with your last turning chain, which is with this chain 2, as your last stitch. So go right into the stitch work itself, just like that. And that was row number 3. So let's turn our work and do row number 4. So row number 4, we're going to chain 2. That's your first double crochet, and start immediately in your next stitch and double crochet yourself across. So the careful thing that you need to pay attention to, especially if you're a new crocheter, is that the last turning chain is always a stitch. So just don't ever forget about it, because it can look like it's blending, but it's right here, and you want to make sure that you use that chain work itself as a stitch to keep your edge flat. Let's turn to work and begin the 5th row. Row number 5 through 8 is the whole repeating of this blanket now. So you're just going to repeat 5 through 8 until you're happy, and then the last row you're just going to, on the very end of your blanket, you'll just single crochet in each stitch across, which I'll demonstrate. So row number 5, you're going to chain 1 and using the back loops only. So you're just going to go in. So if you're a new crocheter, there's 2 strands that make up a stitch, but then if you go into the back loop only, it's going to create a nice ridge. So you're going to single crochet in the back loop only all the way across. And it's such a minor little detail on this blanket, but it's really effective when you're seeing it laid out in front of you as well. And it also gives you a bit of a milestone to be able to look forward to as well. So this is technically the right side of the work. So don't forget that very last stitch right here. Also use the back loop of that chain. And turn your work, and let's begin number 6. Number 6, chain 2, that's your first double crochet, and immediately jump into the next one. And you are going to then just double crochet yourself all the way across. So you don't hear me counting. I don't need to count. I just trust myself. And so there's the last stitch right here. So you go there, and then we're moving on to round number 7 next. So turn our work, let's do number 7. So do you see the ridge? Ignore this. Row number 7 is back to crisscross. So you chain 2, that's your first double crochet, and you worry about the next 2. And so you'll crisscross like you did before. And you crisscross all the way across. So if you crisscross all the way and there's a missing stitch, or you have an extra stitch, something is wrong, it's very easy to accidentally use the same stitch. So it's easy for me just to accidentally just use the same stitch twice. So be very careful. So if you're running out of stitches, just take a look at your work and you can probably see it. So I'm coming in and doing my last set of crisscrosses. We have the counts on the pattern if you need it. And don't forget that turning chain is by itself, and that's just a double crochet. Let's turn our work and do row number 8. On row number 8, you're going to chain 2. That's your first double crochet. So come into the first stitch that's next and just double crochet across. So row number 5 through 8 is your repeating throughout the whole thing, and you're going to be able to do it until there's about 16 rows of crisscrosses that you'll be able to physically count on your stitch work, or it's going to be 53.5 inches, whatever comes first. You want to make sure that you're going to have enough yarn to finish off properly. So you just keep doing that. So you're going to end up with these sections that will look like this over and over and over. Let's do your very last row for when you're ready. When you're ready for the very last row of your whole thing, you're just going to chain up 1 and apply 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way across. And this will be a nice finishing to the way that this thing started. And you will have used as much yarn as you could have, because you will find that based on the 53.5 inches and the repeating that I gave you, is that you won't have enough yarn to do another repeat. So then come right into your turning chain, the chain 2 there, single crochet, and therefore you can just fasten off and enjoy this really amazing pattern. This goes really quick. You'll find yourself probably addicted to it, just watching the colors just transition itself out. It's amazing. We hope you have a good one. We'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.